Hi, well, I'm Marta. Thank you, Renee, for the introduction. And Uncovering Maximalism is the title of my master's thesis, but right now I'm going to talk also about other elements that have to do with this. First of all, this is me when I was smaller, and I was very colorful back then. And at some point, I lost my color, and a lot of people in El Salvador actually don't wear a lot of color. They are influenced a lot by Western aesthetics, by European aesthetics, and this is seen as like higher end, upper class. And my thesis started off with this idea of why do we see that as better? Like where do we have this idea of taste? Where do we take this from, and who decides what is good taste and who decides what is bad taste? As Renee mentioned, my background is in interior architecture. And from the beginning, I started taking objects that were everyday objects. Like, for example, like these are some windows like that are very used in El Salvador and that area for tropical countries. This is a table made out of remnants of a machine. And I was always interested in how you can transform everyday items into something else. And this idea kept growing about how things that we see every day, we just don't really see them, and we can uplift them through different elements. And this is some inspiration that came from my thesis. This is the starting point. And this is downtown San Salvador that has a lot of street sellers, has a lot of access, and is also looked down on, and now cleaner aesthetics. And there's a lot of gentrification, like most of you have experienced probably in your countries. And the street sellers are being displaced, and these elements are being lost. And a clear example of this is this huge metal building that is now built in the center of San Salvador that doesn't fit in with everything else happening in the area. And the personal story, like within the area of that building, is where my great grandfather had his first a photo studio and was demolished completely, and the government is taking the whole area to make it more touristy and more accessible for outside investors. And here is also like the clear demolishing of an important cinema in El Salvador that is being completely changed in the way, as mentioned before in your keynote, like in this idea of like tourism and bringing in money, but it's displacing people and not giving them a space to have identity that it's already a very mixed identity through colonization and through all the elements that make us us. And within this, there is also censorship, because this is a place that was closed and demolished. That was the first queer bar in San Salvador. And they just got a notice from one day to another that it was going to be demolished. And this, in the past 2 years, has been growing and growing, and we are losing these spaces more and more, and at the same time losing this aesthetics of color. And we're having a lot of metal, a lot of concrete, and buildings that make us lose our identity that is already a very mixed identity. Also connecting to the keynote, I found it interesting, like the part of an unreliable history. And I included this image because in a lot of our history books, indigenous people are depicted in a certain way, and even their clothing is very white and very simple. And as I was doing my research, I found out that actually the indigenous people in our area, Lencas and Pipiles, they used purple and orange skirts, we didn't learn about in school, and you don't really find those things until you go deeper into it. And it brought to me this idea of how can we know about our history if if the people that are teaching us this history are the people that colonized us and are influencing us in different ways. So it's a very unreliable story. And going back to everyday items, this is a painting by my high school art teacher, Catalina Cid. And she called this an altar. And this is actually what a lot of houses in El Salvador look like. They have this mixture of like popular elements from the US, but also Catholic elements. Because of course the main religion is Catholicism. We usually have old appliances and old equipment, and it all makes up like this altar of mixtures, and but it's looked down on and it's looked at like a mess or clutter, but at the same time it's people. I was reading into camp and access, and when seen in a particular way, people are actually appreciating these elements. They don't get rid of them, they fix them, they want to recover them, and that makes it anti-capitalistic because it's actually appreciating what is well, the other half. Okay. Starting to talk about my starts in new media. Um, well, you saw for a bit candy there. That is a very typical country in candy in El Salvador that are called chicle bombas, and it's something that we had as kids, and as we bring in like more candy from the U.S. and things like that, we are losing those things, and there's nostalgic, but there's also like ways to make this exciting again. And this is actually like a little test I had done in Touch Designer, but it's actually a picture of a bag I made because I also have a bag brand. So it's like the remake of the remake of the remake. But like it's a way that how in different mediums you can reinterpret elements that you just some people have forgotten about, but when you bring them up in a different way, it makes it exciting again, and you can use those elements. This is another example of this that I was working on an AR experience with also candies that for some reason when we were growing up nobody told us that it looks like baby Jesus, but it's obviously it looks like baby Jesus, and they're pink. They're actually pink and yellow. And I have a little time left, so last year I presented this piece of manifesto, and it was about the Civil War in El Salvador with pictures of my parents. And I bring this up because also with gentrification, there's a lot of censorship towards our history, and the Civil War is one of those subjects that even though I was born the year of the peace accords, it's a subject that the monuments have been torn down, and that people no longer want to talk about this, and the government is censoring. And now going into my project, like the main part of Maximalist. One of my advisors is here. Thank you, Ricardo. And it's about coverings sold in these areas that have been gentrified. And here are some 3D scans in a way to make a digital archive and how new media can bring these elements from the global south that are being lost. And I made a piece with all of the materials bought in El Salvador, and I made all the fabric elements in El Salvador with my team of bags. And then it was made to technology. And this is the final piece that uses fabric from these elements, these coverings that I made into like the technology elements to amplify and blow up elements that are being lost and these bright and colorful things. And it's an example of how new media can amplify elements that we're all losing through these different experiences. Thank you.